So it's an online meetup initiated by us, who we are. We are SoftServe product management community, which is in Ukraine mainly. We are in different city. I'm Svetlana. I represent the community. I'm in Lviv city. My colleague Kristina Bihus, Chris, she is in Vinnytsia, another Ukrainian city. We are SoftServe colleagues, and we have amazing Büşra today, but we will present Büşra just in a few minutes. So it's an online meetup dedicated to data in product management. And I would like to step in Chris, who is a senior product manager with 12 years of experience. And she, as I know, truly believes in data-driven approach in product management. So she's a perfect match in moderating this session. Chris, I'm giving the word to you. I hope we will not be interrupted with any air alarms in Ukraine. And I heartily welcome everyone who joined us all over the world. I know we had lots of registrations from foreign countries, from product managers all over Europe. And welcome everyone. Please keep our chat live. Let's communicate via chat. And Chris, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Svetlana. So yeah, we today have Büşra. She's a product coach, trainer, educator, and for sure an amazing person with a perfect sense of humor. And with a passion for digital product architecture. So I had the opportunity to hear you for the first time during their Product Manager Festival last year in Switzerland. And believe me, I was impressed. So thank you for joining today. So I also need to say that Büşra has 12 years of experience in product leadership and architecture. She is also helping product teams, sharing her experience, insights, and helping to apply this, I would say, sometimes crazy product theories in real life product practices. So welcome, Büşra. I think it's high time to start. And for our audience, I will just remind that our session will be recorded. And as a follow-up letter, you will receive their link for the recording and presentation. So Büşra, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, cool. Hey, thank you so much for the really, really nice introduction. I don't think I can introduce myself better than you did. Thank you so much. Thank you. Before we start, I really want to say I'm very happy that I can be with you today here, because I was sick over the weekend until Monday, actually even until yesterday. I'm having a cough, so very apologies up front if I have to cough in between. I hope it's going to be fine. But, you know, just so you know, I might be coughing in between. Apologies for that. And I'm very happy that I could make it, actually. And also, I would also like to mention, I feel very honored that you have asked me if I want to present this. Thank you so much. Especially like knowing in this difficult situation, I find it very, very inspiring and actually even motivating for all product people out there, that you focus on your craft during this difficult situation. So thank you very much for having me. And I hope this is going to be a little bit of a distraction from, well, the everyday challenges, let's say, that you have. So without further ado, let me share my screen and let's start with the presentation. Can you see my screen?
Still not.
Not. Okay, let me try one more time. No?
Yeah, now it's perfect.
Okay, perfect. So let's start. And let's start with this lovely, not so lovely picture that you see. That might be, but yeah, I don't know. Let's just let it sink in, right? So how does this image look like? What feeling does it give you? Is it exciting? Is it, I don't know, rather boring? It's not very, very informative, is it? It's not very artsy, anything, right? I mean, there's a pretzel stand, but other than that, it's not a beautiful picture.
For sure.
what you see here is the train station of Winterthur. This is a small city very close to Zurich, Switzerland. That's where I live and holding this presentation from. And this picture was shot by my husband, like I think 5-6 years ago, and uploaded on Google Maps. And now my question to the audience is, look at this picture and think about how many views this picture received on Google Maps within the first year after uploading it. Think about it. Have a number in your mind. So, and now let me try to guess the number that you have in the mind, okay? So I think you're going to be somewhere around, if I ask this question, then there must be some thousands, right? So let's say maybe 5,000, 10,000. Don't know if anyone feels like I read their mind. Maybe 50,000. Let's keep the number you have in mind. And now let's reveal it and check it against this number. This picture received more than 180,000 views within the first year after uploading it on Google Maps. Like, what the hell is going on? I mean, this is not a really good picture, isn't it? It's not artsy, it's not fancy, it's not informative, it doesn't have anything on it, but it received so much attention. So how could this even be possible, right? And this is something that we ask ourselves as well. Like, how can this dull picture actually gain so much traction? So after a year, okay, so 1 year passed by, and in the meantime, he received like lots of emails from Google Maps. You receive these emails, hey, this image gets a lot of attention, so and so many views. And we're like, what's going on? What's going on? And it took us a year to actually check what's going on. And then the answer to this question was actually super simple, how this is possible. This picture was the only picture for over a year on Google Maps for the train station of Winterthur. And back then, the mobile user experience of Google Maps was a bit different. So when you would tap on a location, the first picture of that location would open automatically. It's just so obvious, isn't it? So basically, the question how this could happen was not interesting anymore. Actually, the more interesting question turned to be like, why only 180,000 trips were planned to Winterthur, right? So that was the more interesting question here. Well, but why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because there is a learning for us product people in here. Imagine this was an experiment. Imagine you wanted to test, I don't know, maybe new images on your online shop, right? And new product images, which ones perform better, or a recommendation engine, or in your new SaaS product, you have released a new feature and you want to see feature adoption and need to run some tests on it, right? Imagine this was an experiment with your real product, the product that you're working on. This experiment would have failed miserably. 180,000 views for the bin. And why? Because simply the setup was wrong. So that's the product learning here. Set up your experiments to invalidate your hypotheses. If you can manage to not invalidate them, then you're right? And there's a second learning here. It took us a year to check what's happening. That was too late. If you check so late, right? So you should check your setup very early on, because imagine you check your experiment after a year. This is a year of wasted time, wasted efforts, wasted data. You cannot use this data for making any product decision, right? So therefore, again, double check your setup very early on and make sure that everything works as expected. This was the first example of a couple more to come in today's presentation of data pitfalls to avoid in product management, or how I like to call it, how to fool yourself to product success with data. Well, typically I would now introduce myself, but the introduction was already so amazing, so I will just keep it very, very short. I'm Büşra Coskuner, product coach, trainer, educator in Switzerland. And I basically focus on product thinking principles, and I help product professionals to master product management by learning these product thinking principles and applying them in real life situations instead of in idealistic theoretical situations. And one of these product thinking principles is making decisions based on data. Well, so I would call it rather data-informed decision-making. Others call it data-driven or data-inspired decision-making. Is 3 different things, but they all rely on the same principle to look at data, get an understanding of what it says, and then making a decision. But the thing is, so more and more companies do this, and this is great, so that's what we should do, right? But the thing is, there are also data traps. There are things that data can mislead you if you are not aware that these traps exist, right? And think of the last product that you wanted to launch, and you checked data, and everything looked perfectly fine, right? And you were like, yay, this is going to be a huge success. Everybody will love this feature. Everybody will love this product, whatever. And you just miss out on these traps, and then you launch it, and what happens? It's not as successful as you thought, right? Not as successful as you anticipated. Maybe this already happened to you, or this can happen to you when you start leading features or products to market. And if that happens, you failed, right? Because you failed to understand that there are traps that you need to look out for. And therefore, in this presentation, the next examples as well, I would like you to pay attention to data traps and beware that there are some. And we are going to go through 5 of them in total. So we had the first one already, and let's go now over to the second one. Let's have a look at this chart. What does this chart tell us? Let's read it. Divorce rate in May correlates with per capita consumption of margarine. Okay, let's have another look. The black line is margarine consumption, and the red line is the divorce rate in May. Okay, we see when margarine consumption goes down, the red line, the black line, right? Then the red line, the divorce rate in May, also goes down. And when it goes up, then the other one goes up as well. Well, clearly there's a correlation, right? There must be a correlation somehow. But there is another thing that actually tricks us here. What is the trap here to think about? And now you will say like, yeah, she's going to tell us about correlation, right? About causation, right? So correlation and causation is not the same thing. And yeah, we know that already. That's not what I'm going to tell you about, because I know you know that already, that correlation is not the same as causation. What I'm going to tell you about is a third thing that many people don't think about. This third thing is called spurious correlation. So in German, we would say Scheinkorrelation. Beautiful word. Yeah. Scheinkorrelation. Okay, what's the definition of a spurious correlation? What is that actually? Here's the definition by Investopedia. It's a very good definition. So in statistics, a spurious correlation or spuriousness refers to a connection between 2 variables that appears to be causal, but it's not. With spurious correlation, any observed dependencies between variables are merely due to chance or are both related to some unseen confounder. So let's have a look at this chart again. What does that mean? So either somebody made some research on the divorce rate and tracked kind of like the trend, and someone else tracked the trend on per capita consumption of margarine. And then somebody saw both graphs and said, like, hey, they look pretty similar. So let's just map them and pretend that they're correlated. So that's one probability. Now that says correlation has a significance of 99.26%. So the other option might be that there's a chain of connections between them. And the real correlation of each of these variables are actually with a different variable. But these other variables are connected in a way so that in the end, there seems to be a correlation between divorce rate and per capita consumption of margarine, but it's actually not a direct correlation. I could think of a politically incorrect answer for that. I mean, I'm not a margarine person. I love butter, but you know, like when I eat too much butter, I mean, I could imagine somebody like my husband telling me something like, "Oh, how do you look like?" Right. So, anyways, that again, so that's maybe, but guesswork, right? But there might be some way of connecting both sides of this. You don't know. So, product learning. Beware of spurious correlations and do not jump to conclusions too fast. Think about it first if there might be something else going on, right? And when is it actually important to think about something else might be going on? For example, very important for split tests, and that's the reason why we don't end split tests too early to make sure that there is no spurious correlation actually playing games here. When you try to find an aha moment for activating your users, any kind of retention analysis, any kind of front-end analysis where you are comparing two variables to create a meaning of what is happening there, right? So in any kind of these analysis, think about it if there's maybe a spurious correlation. It doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to have like an impact on your decision, but it can have an impact on your decision, especially in split tests. Let's have a look at the next one. And I will, after this example, I will give you a real life example of a spurious correlation here. But after that one, you will see the connection. What is this? Okay, I will read this out loud, and then I will ask you to think about what this might be a description of, okay? Symptoms: loss of appetite, rash, diarrhea, increased temperature or fever, floppiness, irritability, and insomnia. Let it sink in. Think about what this might be a description for. Think well, think twice, keep it in your mind. Now let me reveal it. If you thought, when I was writing these symptoms down, I was thinking of an adult having gastroenteritis, you're wrong. I was thinking of my baby who was teething. Yes, a teething baby might have the same symptoms as an adult who has gastroenteritis. So what's the product learning here? Understand the persona and your base set of your data before you start interpretation of that data. So as you just saw, like the same signals, the same pieces of data, the same signals of different user groups, of different personas might mean different things, right? Therefore, understand who you're asking, understand how this data was collected, understand actually the questions behind this data, right? Especially when you create surveys, make sure that the questions you're asking are really asking what you're trying to find out, right? So I've seen so many examples that ask something else and the meaning that was concluded out of it was completely different, right? So make sure you understand how this data was collected and the context of this data before you jump into any interpretation. So now the example of this for spurious correlation is the following. A teething baby might have a symptom of high temperature or fever. The ones say fever is not a symptom, high temperature is. So the teething itself can cause high temperature. Others say teething itself can also cause fever. So now the thing is, the teething itself, just the teething, does not cause fever. But what it does is, so the baby starts chewing on things, right? So this creates little holes where bacteria can get in, and the bacteria can create an inflammation, and the inflammation is what causes fever. So fever and teething is a spurious correlation. The real correlation is between fever and the bacteria, and teething and chewing on something, and then chewing and getting the bacteria into the system, right? So this is the unseen confounder in the spurious correlation, just as an example. All right, let's have a look at this chart. So this chart is nothing new. I'm sure everybody knows what this means. It's a cumulative chart, and yay, signups go up, and of course cumulative charts go up, right? But somebody presented that, and somebody plays like success theater. It's actually based on real data. I'm not going to tell what it is about, but this is like actual data. Yeah, somebody's playing success theater, and when we product people see that, of course, we are careful with this kind of charts, right? And maybe you sit in the audience and think like, who the hell are you actually trying to fool with that, right? Because we're not believing that, because we know that cumulative charts always go up to the right, right? They are always growing. So this is not the magic of what I'm actually going to tell you. The magic of this is when you see this data, when you see this kind of graphs, of course, you cannot do anything with it. But the thing, or the step that you should try to do is trying to get actionable data that you can actually work with, right? So this is nothing. We cannot work with that. So what might be an actionable piece of data is maybe month-over-month growth of signups. So in this example of this product, we can see that something is happening in the summer. Well, that's normal, right? Summer drops. But what's more interesting is, hey, what's actually happening between February and March, right? So because there is like no obvious like happening there. So what's happening in this month, right? So that's something that we can look into and start analyzing. The real magic happens, however, when you look at, for example, year-over-year comparisons. So you see here, the blue line is data of 2020, the green line is data of 2021. And when you see this helps you to ask the right questions to continue with your work. First question, why is 2021 performing lower than 2020? Second question, what's happening in May? What's happening so that they are actually crossing each other, right? Third question, what's happening in July and August so they are actually going even more apart, right? And now the magic happens, and now you can ask the right questions and can find your way through the data to understand what possible options you have to continue with this product and what to do with it now. So product learning is don't fall for cumulative data and rather find actionable metrics. Actionable metrics, finding them can be very hard, can be also very easy, depends on your context, of course. But one metric type that I would like to talk about next, which is the final example of this presentation, is averages. We actually say don't work with averages, because averages are well, they are hiding information. However, in the industry, we work a lot with averages. Benchmarks are using or are based on averages, right? So, or any kind of summing up or any kind of data that tries to sum up something is based on averages, right? So therefore, it's important to talk about averages. So the thing is, what if your average is the wrong average? What do I mean with that? Chris has seen my presentation, so she knows that this pun is intended.
I will be silent without interference.
Well, There are three types of averages. One is the arithmetic mean. The second is the median. And then there's a third one that's called mode, but I'm not looking at the mode here. Okay, so we focus on mean and median. Average, like as the word itself, the definition of average is center point of data. So the average points to the center of your whole data set. The arithmetic mean is what we call average, or this is the average that we work with in our daily life. That's the average that we know, basically summing up the data values, dividing by the number of data points, and that gives us the mean. So in this example, 2 plus 3 plus 4 divided by 3 is 3. This works very well when you have a normal distribution, so a data set without any outliers. This works perfectly well. But when you have outliers, which is actually in nature the more normal case, I would say, then you have a skewed distribution, and then the mean is not robust anymore. The mean does not robustly point to the very center of your data. Here, the median is the way to go in statistical terms, okay? Or in a statistical, statistically meaningful way. How do you find the median? So basically you sort your data values in a ascending order. Yeah, so from the lowest to the highest. Actually, you can also sort it the other way around. Anyways, and then you find the very middle of your data points, and that's your median. So in this case, we have the 2, the 3, and the 4, and the 3 lies in the middle of your data points, so that is your median. What should we do with this information now? So if median and mean are the same, you don't have to care. Same, kind of like pretty close to each other, you don't have to care. If they're not the same, then statistically, the median is the better average to go with. Well, we're not statisticians, we're product managers. So in product management terms, we can use the median unless it changes the meaning of what we're actually looking for, right? So it tells us a different story if we look at the median versus if we look at the mean. When you're in doubt, you should use the mean because that's the normal average that's been used all over the place, especially when you have like benchmarks and you want to compare yourself with other companies. Typically, it's based on the mean, so therefore, when you're in doubt, use the mean. I cannot see anyone, but I can imagine that there are a lot of questions, and I probably lost you, or at least most of you. So let's have a look at an example. My favorite example is the average order value. The calculation for that is total revenue divided by total number of orders. So that's the normal arithmetic mean, right? So let's have a look at this chart. Again, actual data, that's from an online shop. And this shows the price of purchased item. So this one is sorted in the other way. So on the left side, you see the high-priced items. On the right side, you see the low-priced items. And what you can see here is that there are actually a lot of high-priced items that are sold, but there are actually even more low-priced items that are sold, okay? So when you calculate the mean, the normal average order value based on the normal formula, then you would get a average order value of $371. Now, when you calculate the median, however, it's lower. It's $239,000. So this actually tells you that you are selling a lot of low-priced items, and you would not see it if you would not compare these two numbers. So basically, statistically, the median is the average and not the mean, right? But as product managers, again, so it depends on what you want to find out. So what you should do is definitely looking at both, primarily to understand if they are apart or not. If they're very close to each other, let's say the median is 380 and the mean is 371, it's still counted as almost the same, so they are very, very close to each other, then you don't have to worry about anything. But if they're very far away, like in this example, then this tells you a story. And now, depending on what you want to do with it, you decide in which case you use the median and in which case you use the mean, but you have to definitely point it out when you present it to anyone else. For example, saying median average order value versus average order value, like in this presentation. So product learning here is understand when to use median and when to use mean to calculate the average, as in what it in general means, as well as in the context that you're working on, which one should I use now, right? Because your product might perform better or worse than you actually think in the context that you're looking at your product. So that was the 5th example. So let's have a little recap of the 5 examples that we've looked at and the 5 product learnings here. Number 1 was set up your experiments to invalidate your hypothesis and double check your setup early on. 2, beware of spurious correlations and do not jump into conclusions too fast. 3, understand the persona and your base set of your data before you start interpretation of the data. 4, don't fall for cumulative data, find actionable metrics. And 5, understand when to use median and when to use the mean. I would like to end this presentation with a quote by Tui Larson, who was a product analytics bootcamp alumni. So he said after we ran, or after he participated in our bootcamp, he said, well, you know, Büşra, one of the biggest learnings for me was to understand that data doesn't give you an answer, it gives you an idea. And if you don't have anything to compare, it's just an idea and it can be wrong. Think about the examples, right, that we have gone through. You don't have time data to compare to. You don't have other metrics to compare to, no trends, like nothing. What does it tell you? It's just a data point, right? Understand the context, how you are collecting the data, the base set, the personas, understand the flaws of the question you have asked, right? Understand what is maybe even missing in the data that you have collected, and only in the right context and with the right foundation, as I mentioned on LinkedIn, then you can see your data as reliable and it can give you a better idea. That was it. Thank you a lot. Please feel free to connect with me. Best is on LinkedIn, and if you want to exchange with me on anything, data or product principles, product thinking principles in general, how to be product-led, etc., I'm very open to it. And yeah, if you have any questions, let's start. Shoot.
Yeah, while we are waiting for the questions from our audience in chat, please be active in case if you want to ask something. I will ask you the very first question because I'm interested in it. So what do you think about statistical significance? So sometimes when you start to run tests, for example, for an early beginnings with the MVP product, you are starting comparison like A/B audience and try to gather some nice feedback, yeah? And for example, from the project A, you have a nice figures, nice numbers, and you are ready to have some conclusions. Okay, I grab it, I did it, I find a better solution for my product. But their audience, you have very few of this audience and the data won't be statistical significant. And from one perspective, I assume that you're receiving some insights, but from the other perspective, you could understand for the massive launch, it couldn't work. So what do you think about this? And what are your ideas? What are your advices here?
That's a very, 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 very good and important point you make. The thing is, statistical significance is important. It's very important. And there is no but on it, because if you want to make decisions based on solid data, then you definitely need to quantitative data. Okay, so for me, data is not only quantitative, but it's also qualitative, because it's all collections of input to create insights and information and so on and so forth. So if you want to make decisions based on quantitative data, then you must make sure that your numbers are significant, because otherwise, actually you immediately fall into the trap of spurious correlation. So there might be something else going on, and also bias, right? So you might actually have the wrong audience without noticing it, and only fall for confirmation bias, right? And you want to believe the numbers, and that's why you do it. But if you want to use quantitative data, you need significance. If you don't have enough audience, if the data set is too small, and instead of relying on the numbers, what you need to do is you need to rely on the qualitative information that you get there, the qualitative data. And there again, there's this huge trap of confirmation bias, right? So then you have to be very disciplined, and therefore it's better to do this in a group of people and not alone, to actually make sure that you don't pick only the things that you like, but also pick the things that you don't like, right? It's very uncomfortable to hear, but that's what you need in order to prevent a big pitfall, right?
Yeah, I got it, your point. So it's better to collect insights from your audience, even on early stages, if the data won't be validated by some solid data sets and so on.
And that is the normal case, right? When you build a new product, and the normal case is that you don't have enough data points that you could gain any significance within a year or something. I don't know. I don't want to wait too long for that.
But I assume that you could met the stakeholders, who are trying and asking, where's your numbers? Are you sure in the things what you are doing? And sometimes
exactly, and the answer is no way to make a decision on quantitative data.
Yeah, for sure. And one more question. So I assume that you have heard that right now we have a trend to transfer from A/B testing to ABCDEF testing when you have multiple variation of it. So what do you think about this? So, and how do you imagine? So I like the idea. I like the idea very much, especially with the initial test, with the user interviews trying to pick the best option, but it will double, triple, and so on your resources, multiplying your resources and your capacity to run on this test. So do you have any thoughts about these trends, and perhaps again your piece of advice?
Yeah, that's very funny. Actually, when I started in product management, that was something that marketing people would do quite a lot, right? So that's what it's called. So it's the official term is actually split test and not A/B test, because split test can mean A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So how many variations you want to have, and very common in marketing. And if we go into the history of where product management comes from, it actually comes from marketing, right? So so also having worked in the conversion rate optimization part of some products, I heavily believe in split tests, not only A/B, but A, B, C, D, etc., with multiple variations. And I actually even believe, or I was actually pretty sad to see that we are only focusing on A versus B in the product world. We actually have to open it up. However, again, this only works if you have a lot of data points, right? So if you have a lot of users and so on, so that you can get to a statistically significant answer in, short enough time. Let's put it this way. What short enough means depends on your product. So short enough might even mean a month, right? If your product is like that, it works like that, right? Then it might mean a month. But if you only have few or just enough traffic on your website to run A versus B, then I would really start with that. And once you get more traffic, move on to A, B, C, etc. And regarding the resource heaviness of that, actually is the other way around. I mean, you want to have answers fast, right? So you want to go to the market fast. And that means either you run the tests in different variations, sequentially, one after the other, and wait, I don't know, 6 months until you get the final answer. And in the meantime, the engineers have to work out every single piece of the variations, or you do them once, have an answer in maybe 2 months, depending on how many variations you have for the traffic that you have, right? And then the engineers are freed up for any other work, right? So I personally believe it's better to run multiple variations against each other. But again, context, right? Traffic and capacity and what else needs to be done, etc., also definitely play a role.
Thanks. And one more question.
Sure.
We will round up. Okay, so you know that perhaps a lot of the beginners are watching us. Some of the good professional with a solid experience also is watching us. But I think that every product manager or every person is really afraid to fail, and to do wrong conclusions. And what could you advise them? So how to avoid this or not to avoid? So I'm for sure that you have a long road, and perhaps on this road you also had some small things which had happened. So
I had like
so share your experience about this and perhaps some tips and tricks for guys.
So I will not give the general advice, fail fast, fail early, and you'll learn a lot. Yes, that's true, but it also depends on the company that you're working with, right? So the company culture. I know enough people who have the right mindset and who are ready to just try things out and maybe fail and learn from it. But they fear doing this because the company does not motivate trying things out and failing, right?
A lot of talking. It's usual things in the words.
Yeah, I have this cough, right? So so therefore, yeah, what did I want to say? Yeah, so if you are in an environment where you think you can either get the buy-in or the company culture is like that already, then don't think too much, right? Try things out. Yes, read a lot, follow some good advice. Well, now product community turned into something like everybody has their own wisdom, kind of, right? So there's a lot of noise. So find the people you believe are giving good advice, good tactics from everyday product management work, and try things out. If you have the environment, try things out. If you don't have the environment, you can still try to learn when you shadow your friends who are in this environment, or go to meetups, exchange experience, and so on and so forth. Of course, just listening to these stories will not gain you that much experience, but it will at least give you an idea what to do when you are in the next role where you can actually try things out, right? And you have to try things out. Oh my God, I failed a complete redesign, which is funny because actually in the hindsight, it was not my mistake, but back then I felt like, oh my God, I fucked this up, but it was actually not, right? So this is normal. This is just super normal. Yeah. That's what you do every day.
Work in progress.
Work in progress.
Improve and go again.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this inspiring, I think it's an inspiring topic when you could see this conclusion, had tried. So thank you for your time. Sorry that we have taken you in this coughing stuff and just from your business routine, we're just wrapping up over here.
Just one more thing regarding failing topic, right? I don't want my presentation to come over like, oh my God, just be aware, don't do these mistakes, right? I mean, when you're just starting out, please do these mistakes, right? Just be aware that they are there. And then when you see the results, you might maybe learn from it and be like, oh, that's what happened. Okay, I heard about it. Okay, now I know, right? Please do these mistakes and learn yourself how the effect of these mistakes can be. In the end, I guess no statistical numbers here, but I guess the majority, maybe 80% of the product managers out there are not working on a product that is saving lives or something. Yeah.
Yep, for sure, for sure.
Therefore, try things out. Don't let yourself don't get demotivated or scared by this presentation. It's more like, hey, these things can happen, and now you know about them, you've heard about them, and if something like that happens, then you can maybe refer to it, right? So it's more about an idea what could happen.
It's like a guideline along your way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks again for your time, for your input. So for our audience, just a quick note and reminder that you'll receive a follow-up with the presentation and with the video. And also you can ping Büşra in case if you have some interesting questions. And she's very open and kind person and she'll ready to help you. So thanks again. I think it was amazing.
Thank you.
It really was. It really was. Thank you, Büşra. Thank you, Chris. Let's meet someday on another event. We would love to be offline maybe someday in Ukraine or online.
Yes.
It's both good options. Have a great day and let's catch up on LinkedIn and other platforms.
Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.